rock and roll. Today's little activity it's a shorter activity, so it won't take too long. But today we're going to check out Scrum Mythbusters. It's an activity that I purchased from the Liberators. If you're not familiar with the Liberators, they are a couple of guys that they're really promoting the liberating structure techniques, and they have a whole site for resources, blog articles. They have different instructions on how to use these facilitation techniques and just all sorts of things. So I've poked around on their site a little bit, and I've acquired some of their materials, and we're going to check out some of that today. It's a shorter activity, so we'll kind of play it a little bit, and then we'll debrief and talk about how you could potentially use it with your teams or what you might change and do differently. So that's what we'll do. I do have to provide a disclaimer, though, that because I purchased the materials from them, unfortunately, after the session today, I will not have anything that I can share out with you guys, no material or anything that you can leverage with your own teams. You'll either have to go out to the Liberator site and purchase the material, or you can come up with your own thing if you want to do that, if you want to do this activity. So that is that. So let's check this out here. Share, I gotta do all the things. Give me just a moment. Okay. Hopefully everyone is seeing my screen that shows Scrum Mythbusters, and then there should be a link at the top that says join at menti.com. Does everyone see that? No, I didn't want to share. Okay.
No, I don't see that.
All right, let's try this again then. How about now?
Yeah,
See it
looking
now.
good now.
Okay, I think I must have been sharing the wrong screen. Okay, so you guys can go ahead and join at menti.com. Oh, I gotta get rid of this bar so you can see, huh? Go away. Oh no.
So we
Oh,
can see it. That bar is
you
probably
can.
just for you.
Okay, well, now it's in my way. As long as you guys can see the screen, all of the things, you guys can go ahead and join at menti.com. You can use your tablet, your phone, computer, whatever system that you want to get in, and you can put a nickname in there if you want. You can use the default nickname. If you want to use your real name, you can. There will be some scoring along with this, but we don't need to know who's who. It's just for fun. So you can use the nickname. And then once we get folks in here. I don't know if that music gets too annoying, we can turn it off. See, a few players in there, 5 people. How many are we expecting? 6. Okay. Looks like everyone's getting in. So gameplay will be pretty simple with this. I'll flip through the next slide and a question will come up, and then you have 20 seconds to answer the question, and you'll get points based on how quickly you can answer the question, whether or not you get it right. And so we'll go through 9 questions, and then when we're done with that, we'll kind of talk about some of these questions that came up. Liberators, the game itself has 49 cards, but we're only going to do 9 today. So, you guys ready? All right. So first question's coming up. You have 20 seconds to answer the question. All right, it looks like everyone got that one right. We'll see who had a fast fingers there to get the points in there. Ooh. All right. How would would you say clavid or clavid? How would you say that?
You're the worst.
All right, we're gonna do the next question. Oh, sorry. Push the button. Oh, guys are rocking and rolling. See how this changes up. Oh, you guys are fast. All right. Let's take a look at number 3 here. Question 3. Oops, are fast. Oh, yeah, they threw some tricky ones in there. We'll circle back and we'll talk about a couple of these. Well, things shifted. All right, let's try question number 4. All right. We'll talk about that one in a moment. Ooh, things are shifting around here. Jeff's got the fast fingers. All right, question 5. We have a few more. All right, we'll talk about this one. Jeff's hanging on to the top there. All right. We only have a few more questions. All right, that's another one that we can talk about. See how things shifted. Oh, mind bullets is coming up. All right, question 7.
Oh man, that's funny.
All right, it's another one we can talk about.
Jeff Sutherland might argue with you about that. Thanks. One more questions there. You guys are doing well. All right, good deal. All
All right, we're going into the last question here. This one's for all the marbles, so it looks like it's getting pretty close. Yeah, all right, we'll see who has fast fingers on this last one. Good deal. This is a smart bunch. All right. Here's the final results. Very close game. All right, congratulations, Jeff. You had fast response time in there. And you probably got questions right too. Good deal. All right. There we go. My screen froze of some sort. Great. So that was the activity. Essentially the way that the Liberators has it is they all have hard copies, and so everything's on cards that you would pass out to the group, or you'd hold them up or what have you, and folks would call out if it's a myth or a fact. But I virtualized it. I used Menti. That's because it's free. So that's why I use that. But you could ultimately use whatever tool or resource or whatever you would want to use for yourself. So let's kind of review some of these statements here. I heard a couple laughs or just a little, kind of moments. So let's go through a couple of these and just see if we can debunk some of these myths or turn them around to be factual statements. So the first one, card that we did was talk about Scrum being a framework to navigate complex adaptive problems. And that one was a fact. Are there any questions about Scrum navigating these complex problems? Any questions or thoughts on that one? Nothing more to say.
I guess the only thing I'd say about it is that to me, that's like Scrum's sweet spot. I mean, Scrum can be useful in other ones as well, but its sweet spot is in those complex and adaptive problems.
Yeah. It's probably a good call out that it's a sweet spot. Good call out, Jeff. The next card that we went through was talking about Scrum Master must be present during the daily Scrum, and this one was a myth. So what might make this one a myth for the Scrum Master being present during the daily Scrum, or that they must be present for daily Scrum? Do they have to be?
If I remember correctly, I think like the Scrum Master's job is to ensure that the daily Scrum takes place, but they don't necessarily have to be there.
Yeah. I saw Derek shaking his head no as well in agreement. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, the Scrum Guide kind of teaches that it's supposed to be a meeting for the developers, right? And I mean, I know I've been a Scrum Master before where they all want to talk to me. And it's like I'm doing everything I can to get them to talk to each other because I'm not a project manager.
Right. Yeah, it's for the team. So you don't have to be there. So this card was interesting. I think this one we saw a couple of mixed responses, but it mentioned that members of the Scrum team have to be co-located and full-time members. And on this card, the Liberators claimed it to be a myth. Well, you guys can't see because it's blurry. The Liberators claim this one to be a myth. Why do you think they might have said that this one is a myth regarding Scrum team members being co-located and full-time?
Well, what I will say, I volunteer right now, and not because that's not the case. It isn't the case, and we're virtual. People are located different places, and just as long as you have a way that you can commonly meet, you don't have to be in the same place. That's my take.
Yeah, the times have definitely changed, haven't they, Felicia? So
Yeah.
it's difficult to be in a physically co-located spot these days. Any other comments or thoughts on this one?
I kind of separate those two words, right? That mean, neither of them are mentioned in the Scrum Guide, right? And that's kind of, why. But, if you want to be effective, they need to be full-time members of the team. But the Scrum Guide doesn't, put that limitation on it. And certainly in the co-located, that's certainly a signal that, yeah, we're remote, at this point, and there's lots of Scrum teams that are happening that don't have to be co-located, but your fidelity of conversation is so much higher, when you're in
Absolutely.
physically the same place.
Absolutely.
And I'm sorry for cutting you. I wanted to also say about, full-time, sometimes folks, it might be a little bit more effective, but it depends the commitment level of the individual, because you can have part-timers equally participating in being effective. I guess it's about the effectiveness of the work. So
Yeah.
This feels like a place where the Scrum Guide doesn't say anything, and this is like a good lesson for teams to understand that there are not all the answers in this magical document. There are very few answers in this magical document. So yay, gray areas.
Yeah. Well, and Daniel, it's a good like segue into this next one, because this next card will trick people up sometimes. This statement was about work in Scrum is always estimated in story points, and it's a myth. And what can you guys tell us about this being a myth? Why is this a myth? Is work always estimated in story points?
No, it is not.
no.
Thanks, Ed.
And a big anti-pattern is when agile coaches or scrum masters will talk more about story pointing than eliminating dependencies and how to point things and all that stuff. I'm living that every day right now, so it's a kind of a trigger point for me.
Yeah.
And I apologize if I get too pedantic today. I'm kind of a nerd about this, and I teach it like every week at my job. But right, the guy just says you should know the size of things in your backlog. It doesn't, it's not a prescriptive framework, right?
Right.
And that's what a lot of people kind of misunderstand, is they think it's much more, didactic than it is. Story points, from my understanding, all came from extreme programming, and probably that also gets to your future one about user stories. That's all extreme programming, practices that people have kind of misunderstood as being required in Scrum.
Yeah. We've blended some things together, huh? I see Daniel's comment in the chat. There's another card here that we kind of had some mixed responses on, and it mentioned the definition of ready is not part of the Scrum framework, and this one is a fact. So definition of ready is not part of the Scrum framework. Anyone have any thoughts about definition of ready, where that came from, or how it came to be that it is a part of Scrum? What are some
So I
thoughts about
think
this?
before the 2020 guide, it was in the guide. I think they removed it as the 2020 guide.
Oh. Anyone else have thoughts on that one?
No, I think Jeff's right. I've been working for Jeff Sutherland for the last 2.5 years, and he talked a lot about kind of removing a lot of things in the last guide to kind of increase flexibility.
Sure. Yeah. Wonder when they'll have a new revision of the guide out. It's been a few years.
As far as I know, Marissa, there is not one imminent.
All right. So I can memorize this one and be good to go.
But did we
This
get
other
advance notice before the 2020 dropped? I don't remember hearing a lot that it was coming. It just kind of
I might have been a little close to the sun on that one, so I might have known more than a lot of folks did. But I know what Jeff's working on right now, and it's not that.
It's moved on. Yeah.
Yeah, he's really hung up on his first principles book right now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So Brian is our insider scoop for this stuff. So connect with him on LinkedIn, guys. This next card talked about that in Scrum there is no sprint zero, and it's a fact. Anyone have comments about sprint zero? Maybe you've used sprint zero, or what are your thoughts about sprint zero?
I'm chuckling because I kind of treat like sprint zero like Fight Club. If we ever happen to do it, we don't admit we did it, you know, kind of thing. Right?
I think to like some extent work is work. So what's magical about a sprint zero? Just do all that stuff in sprint one. Like, what does that number even mean? Just start working. And if these are the things you've got to do in order to be a productive team, then those are the things in your backlog.
The only part I'd say where it might, even though it's not technically a thing, if somebody needs to prepare, if they come from a waterfall mindset, you know, and they need to unpack and before they deliver something of value, then you kind of just got to deal with that and accept that as a maturing thing, and just feel like, okay, great, okay, we're going to do some planning, we're going to put some things on the board. If they've never done this stuff before, then I think it can be a good thing, but obviously it's not something that you want to toe the line on for long. I've become a lot more accommodating.
Yeah, I agree with you, because it's kind of like putting some training wheels on if people aren't used to it. It's like, you're still doing the same thing. We're just going to call it something different if it makes you happy.
Yeah. All right. I heard some laughs on this card. It was the one for in Scrum, twice the work is done in half the time, and that one's a myth. And I heard some chuckles on this one when you guys read this question. So what were folks thinking about on this one?
Yeah, Dan's got the book.
See the book, yeah, the book.
Everybody whips it up.
Mine's at home, otherwise I'm right up to.
Are you calling Jeffrey Ronald Roland Tolkien Sutherland a liar? I don't know if that's his middle name.
Probably is. It sounds right. Brian?
Yeah, it's hard to argue that. By the way, a new version coming out in the spring of the Red Book. So got that to look forward to. But no, he actually regrets that title.
That's good to know, because I was actually going to say, and I don't want to draw his wrath, but I mean, I try to evangelize that Scrum's not about going faster. It's about being able to switch direction, right? And anytime that people talk about speed, they're kind of misusing what the point was of it. And that's why I get nervous when people talk about vanity metrics of velocity charts going, you know, up off the roof, because it's like it's a false measurement of anything.
If we're doing it right, I think there's like an appearance of speed where like you're delivering more things of value than you were before. So it feels like you're going faster. Even though like we're still delivering at the same rate. Like we're not typing code faster. Like stuff's not getting done faster. We're just building things of value more often. And so it has the appearance of speed.
Thought it was useful clickbait. I myself have not read the book, but I was like, I don't care if he puts that out there, because if it gets them to get to the point of like pivoting is like a factor of X more faster, then I'm okay with that. If it pushes out that idea, I think that's because that's what management wants, that, right? Like they don't even want to look at Agile. Like our internal initiative is literally called Upspeed. So that's what it's called. And so that's what they look at. So if they want to look at that and then at least get on this tangent of actually delivering things with more value, optimizing the whole for you less people, like that's
all good thoughts there. We have two more cards. This next one had mentioned developers committing to the sprint goal, and that one was listed as a fact. So any comments or thoughts on that one about developers committing to the sprint goal?
I guess I like the the verbiage of that question, because it's like they don't need to necessarily come up with it, but they sure as heck need to commit to it as a group. I don't think it's, you know, I think in theory, right, the product owner could come up with that and bring it to the table, or it could be a team decision, but at the end of the day, everyone should be committing to that goal.
Important
Absolutely.
nuance there of in team commitments, not individual commitments.
Yeah, that's a good call out too, Ed. Yep.
Unfortunately, because I've seen it. Just you will be coming in this weekend.
Right? We all agree, right? Okay, we'll go. Let's move on. Good conversation. Yep. The last one was another, I think one of those, it can be a gotcha sometimes with folks, but it mentioned all items on a product backlog must be written as user stories, and that one is a myth. So what are some thoughts on that one with writing backlog items as user stories, or that they must be written as user stories?
Mouse has got it written as product backlog item in the Scrum guide.
I see David put in the chat, PBI, yep, product backlog increment, yep.
Yeah, there's no reference to story anywhere in terms of backlog items. So users like story points, user stories, all that stuff is stuff that's been layered on top that lots of teams find useful, but is not technically Scrum.
Yep.
I've often wondered if it's Jira that kind of caused this too, since we have to pick a drop down, right? And so then people are often picking the story drop down, and then just anything that's written under it is considered a story.
That's actually my favorite trick question in all the trainings and things like that I do is like, what part of the Scrum guide does it talk about user stories? And giving people a little bit of an opportunity to be like, well, actually, I don't remember. I'm like, that's because it's not in there.
I think this is a really good topic to talk to teams about. We have problems of teams arguing about, is this a user story or a technical story? And the word story becomes almost synonymous with backlog item to the point where it's like a nonsensical thing. And as their Scrum teams, like, neither. It doesn't matter. You can call them whatever you want.
Absolutely. Those are good call outs, Daniel. So those were the 9 questions that I chose out of this whole deck for us to do. The Liberators, they have some suggestions on how to facilitate the activity, and one of the other comments that they have is to use the 1-2-4-all facilitation technique in conjunction with these cards. So that's another way that you could run it if you wanted to. But what are some other thoughts that you folks had as we played through this? You got to see some of the questions. How might you use this activity? What might you do differently? How might you change things up?
As we were doing it, the thing that popped in my head was like, if like just pull out a couple cards at the start of a retro and just kick it off there as kind of a icebreaker, ease into it a little bit of like, hey, let's talk through these things for 10 minutes and just see where the group's at.
I've done a version of this where at the beginning of like an Agile 101 training, I'll use this as like a connection moment for people just to engage with these ideas and see where they're at. But rather than scoring it right away, I'll have them hold on to their sheet or hold on to the document. And then at a break or as we're going through, I'll tell them this would be a good time to update your answers and move things around. So like kind of removing shame from the equation of like, oh, you got that one wrong. But like showing that growth of like, oh, here's that thing I learned and making it a physical.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I had the same thought kind of as you're talking through that, Daniel, where I was just like, yeah, this is an awesome, addition to facilitation, an awesome addition to training and helping people just understand core concepts. For that, I loved it.
Yeah. It's definitely helpful to help folks find those gray areas or those areas where we can talk some more about it, or, things have changed over time as all of you were sharing your thoughts. We've talked about how back in the day things were this way, but it changed and now it's this way. So what we might know could be old news, old knowledge. Any other thoughts on this one? What you might do differently, or especially now that we're virtual, trying to virtualize stuff like this? All right. I'm going to take silence as no other thoughts there. So that kind of wraps up the activity for today. We do have somebody that we are lining up for March. The event in March will like 98% be on a different day and a different time than what we're used to seeing here with this group. It'll probably be March 21st at 12 p.m. Central. So we're hoping to get that event details, put together and sent out so you guys can put that on your calendars. So we have that for March, and we are definitely looking for other folks for April, May, June. So if you have anything that you want to try, like today I tried this game that I hadn't facilitated before. So if you have something new that you want to try, this is totally a safe space to try it with a good group of people, lots of great feedback, things to change up, the activity if you want to run it live. So that's what we've got on deck. Chris or David, I see Ed had to drop, but any other thoughts from you guys there?
No, I don't think so. I think I would just echo that, like, yeah, this is safe space. So feel free to bring something you've been meaning to a try, something you want to use us as guinea pigs instead of a team. We're always up for something new.
Yep, absolutely. All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us on this Thursday morning, and I hope everyone survives the rain today. Hopefully it clears up, and we'll see y'all next time.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.